Hey everyone, it is 6:03 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on June the 9th, 2022 years from something. I'm going to continue today on the theme of yesterday's video, which I named, I think, What Are in These Rivers? Now, I will give you this. There are times when if I'm looking at something, I find things, maybe I find multiple things. I don't always have time to go and check on what is every single one of these things or what's the official story of these things. But I decided this morning, since I've spent months now trying to get the tools, the document tools that I actually use and produce in a far better structure, and it's really tedious. And as I said, I started doing that January. After I produced Bringing It All Together, I started working on those, which is part of the reason for doing these briefs. Not that I have anything wrong with them, like I wouldn't do them if things were different necessarily. But anyways, let me go back. I'm back on Google Earth, and for some reason I ended up at an angle here. Let me go back to St. Louis on Google Earth and back to the Missouri River, because that's what we looked at a lot in the last video. And I am going to take, man, look at how, where is this at? I'll bet somebody can actually tell me where the setting is on Google Earth that should tell me technically how high I'm viewing from at any given point. The point is I'm trying to make, if I pull out, maybe I should say zoom out, but if I zoom out to what would have to be at an amazing height, I think about when I've flown in a jet. Jets fly around 6 miles up, and I've flown over the Grand Canyon. I've flown over the Mississippi multiple times. And I guess, let's see, from 6 miles up, I'm thinking, yeah, being by the wing and looking down, that looks, I don't know, that looks pretty close. Okay, so 6 miles. The funny thing is, you can even see a few marks from that height speckled along here in the Missouri River. Now, from this height, I'd say this is pretty good height. You can see these structures in the and they're all through the Missouri River, at least in the area of St. Louis, and from a lot of the videos I watched this morning already. These are kind of all through the Missouri River. They're in other rivers in the United States, but not with such frequency as we're finding them here in the Missouri River. I mean, they're just insane in here. And look at this. Now, I just want to show you this one more time before I get to the official story. All right, look at the structure of them. And I sort of pointed this out before, how I thought, well, that's amazing, because they're following this what looks to be like this really graceful flow, you know, in these certain directions. They're not just, you know, I don't know what you'd say, haphazard. But I'm going to talk about the official story, and then, you know, looking at them, you can decide whether that story seems good or not. They're called wing dams. Makes a lot of sense based on their shape. And we're just going to do the official story according to Wikipedia, okay? A wing dam or wing dike is a man-made barrier that, unlike a conventional dam, only extends part way into a river. These structures forced water into a fast-moving center channel, which reduces the rate of sediment accumulation while slowing water flow near the riverbanks. They do also try to say that it helps with riverbank erosion, which is interesting to me because I've gone and checked out other big major rivers with pretty darn good water flows, and oftentimes they don't have these at all. And it's interesting that where these things show up, I mean, they're not evenly dispersed either. And I'm sure there's probably official reasons for that. The whole point is whether those official reasons make sense, like in reality or not. They say the Mississippi River in North America has thousands of wing dams, which were originally constructed to reduce the amount of dredging required when the main navigation channel was maintained to at least 4.5 feet or 1.4 meters. One more time. The Mississippi River in North America has thousands of wing dams. They were originally constructed to reduce the amount of dredging required when the main navigation channel was maintained to at least 4.5 feet. Since that time, additional conventional dams have been built to increase the water level in the river, doubling the depth of the navigation channel to 9 feet. The wing dams still serve their purpose, but to a lesser extent than before. Yeah? Huh. Well, all right. Because the weird thing is that, for the most part, I believe that a lot of these wing dams on these major rivers are claimed to have been built like around the same time as these conventional dams. So I'm having to assume that they're basically talking about the lock and dam systems that start around Alton, Illinois, with a frequency and extend up northward. That's on the Mississippi. That's not counting. That's not counting on the Missouri. They're also in place on the Illinois River, locks and dams, on the Ohio River. And so, yeah, here's the thing. A lot of those rivers... Okay, so take the Missouri River, we'll say that. Because now they're addressing the Mississippi, and they're trying to tell us that there's all these points that were just too shallow. So they had to put in the locks and dams to bring up the water levels. After the wing dams, because they didn't work as good. If you guys paid attention to the size of the wing dams just in the Missouri, and they're bigger in the Mississippi, a lot of them. They're huge structures, requiring massive amounts of material, manpower, and time. And then based on when they say they were made, and there's so many of them. And of course, whether we're talking about wing dams or we're talking about dam and lock, we're talking about hydro, any of these systems that we find on any of these rivers, the catch-all, maybe not excuse, but where they came from, their catch-all origin is like it's always going to be the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And I haven't done an exhaustive study and listing of these things because it would take a lot of time, which I don't have but I would imagine if you looked into all of the claims of when these things were made, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, right? They're the catch-all for origin of all these things. You'd really have to wonder either how large the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was to be able to accomplish all of these things in this really short time, for one thing. Another thing, you'd have to question the wisdom of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, especially when you see something like, supposedly they built all of these wing dams, and then really not long after that they decided, well, they're just not as effective, and we want to raise these water levels, and so we're going to do this. And I don't know how I feel about that. Now, if you were going to build those wing dams, I would assume that you could probably do a dredging and wing dam building in conjunction. You know, I know a certain amount of that, it's Mississippi, so a certain amount of that we're talking about mud bottom, but mud is earth. And a certain amount of the materials that you use to impound water or redirect water is earth. I know earth can wash away, so you have to think about these different situations. But with these wing dams, depending on what their purpose is, one of the purposes they say, again, was to stop erosion, which is weird. Which is weird because a lot of the places that you'll find these wing dams at, they sure do look like places where erosion wouldn't be that big a problem. And then you go to other major rivers or other spots on the Missouri River, and you see no wing dams in places where you think, man, erosion would have to be probably a pretty serious issue. We do have to look at, you know, where the bends are and all of that. Right now, I don't entirely understand or claim to understand the reasons for why they would want to direct the river in the certain ways that they say that they're using these things to direct it in. But see, as I'm moving along here, folks, one thing to keep in mind, like from yesterday, I showed you how large these structures are outside the water. And one of the things is the Missouri River is known to be pretty deep in a lot of places. Pretty deep, 20, 30 feet. The funny thing is I've got some videos of a fisherman who's actually advising how to navigate the Mississippi because of, for one thing, all the wing dams in the Mississippi. And look, there's more wing dams. But they're calling wing dams, and you can see below the water's surface that channel edge, that false man-made edge. So it really makes you wonder when they say, you know, what the wing dams were for, if they weren't meant to be solid with these wings here, like this whole inner bank, just based on the curve. You know, you can see you've got more here, more here. Wondering if actually these were built with this small inlet here in mind. And now, you know, the greatest amount, and you'll see them all, they're below the water all through here. Now, what's interesting is they're so dangerous because so many of them are right beneath the surface of the water. And if you're not wary, you can run your boat right into them and destroy your boat. I have one video showing water flowing over a wing dam that's actually somewhat, and here's the thing, so the Missouri River has a really fast current, and when you combine that with these wing dams that are oftentimes not far enough proud of the water to successfully divert it, or even somewhat under the water, you get extremely dangerous situations. So again, let's go back to the fact that they want to put the origin of so many of these massive projects on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, all of a sudden you got to start thinking of their wisdom. And this is, look at this. I'm just saying, look at this. I'm miles. I've gone miles and miles on the Missouri River, and we're still seeing these wing dams. Look at that. And I found videos where they're reporting that these wing dams are in the Missouri River over in Kansas, Nebraska. Look at that. See how we're seeing them? All the way up the river. You telling me that? Look at this. Look at the structure. Look at this. Still on the Missouri, man. I'm going miles, miles at a time. And what are we seeing? Look at those. All those wing dams right there. They're huge. They're huge, folks. I measured some of them in the video yesterday. And here's a few more. But yeah, let's go ahead. Let's focus in. This one's got a lot of accumulation of old sticks and whatnot. This one right here, let's change this miles to feet. This is 20 feet wide right there. It's 20 feet wide. So depending on how deep the Missouri River is there, you've got to think about how much material fill you would need to get down to the bottom. And I don't know the engineering of underwater structures, but for a river with such a long current, it's 256 feet long out into the river, guys. That's a lot of material. And again, based on, the kind of depth that the river is achieving at 256 feet in, could require a lot of material. And if the currents are as strong as they say, I do have to wonder what's keeping them in place. And if this is some brilliant stroke of genius by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, why do all of them look like they have not been maintained, repaired, or anything? You have to buy maps and charts that actually show you where all these... I was going to cuss. Anyways, where all these things are, because they are actually very dangerous. Now, we have reached a point on the Missouri where I don't see as many, and I had to get all the way out to near Jefferson City, Missouri, to start seeing a pretty decent break in those. And it's a long ways, guys. It's a really long ways. Let's see if the closer we get to Jefferson City, if we get more wing dams. Real quick, I'm just going to do that, and then I have a few videos, not only on wing dams, but really interesting videos on these various water phenomena. Now again, I said yesterday, I don't remember what it was that necessarily precipitated my great interest. That looks very interesting, doesn't it? Now that actually looks like... Oh, this sawtooth look to the shore. Now, isn't that something? Because I'm going to have to take a minute with this. Sorry, folks. I did not notice this before. And what is this over here? Excuse me. This is just a what? It's just a road. It's a road built up. You get flooding in here. Is that flooding? Am I seeing floodplains here? Sorry. Creek. I couldn't tell if that's a floodplain or if that's was grassland from where I was looking at it. So I don't know. Are we looking at something that's supposed to be a levee? If so, it's not working all that well. Yeah. Well, it looks like we've got a break here, but this looks like dry ground here and here. I'm sorry, but I don't know what's going on here. Clearly, we've got some deeper water right there. A lot of trees here. A lot of trees in that area there. And I apologize. I don't know what this is. I mean, it looks like it's serving as a levee. Yeah, and it is, it's 94, 95 feet, maybe 100 feet across. So definitely an earthen levee. Interesting shape, though. I mean, that's what caught my eye. And why it's shaped in that way. I mean, just look at it. That's really interesting. It goes over. I don't have time for that. This is what I wanted to show you. Is I just noticed this sawtooth pattern on the shore. Trees all the way up to it. And it's really hard to say what's going on there. That's a really odd pattern, though, to see. You know, maybe, if I were to guess, like I didn't know anything about any claims that anybody had made about any engineering on it, and I saw this, I might think, it looks like they put in that wing dam structure in these areas, and what happened was they got so full of sediment in there that they eventually got a little more solid and a little more earthen over time, over quite a while, and then trees and plants, vegetation started growing in there. That'd be a guess. Who knows if it would be right or wrong. But it does look like a lot of them have petered out by here, which I think is kind of weird, because in here you've got that same kind of sawtooth shoreline. The reason I say that's weird is because if those wing dams serve the purpose that they say, well, I can't imagine not needing them up this huge stretch of river here too, but it looks to be pretty naked of it. Now, I went and looked at the Ohio too, and the Ohio has, you know, these enormous patches where you can't see anything at all. Now, that's not saying there's none below the surface, and one of the videos I got is going to show you a little bit of how you do have a lot of these below the surface, and I think it's going to illustrate how the official narrative concerning the usage, the initial usage of the wing dam, I think it, in a sense, it kind of blows that out of the water. So give me a second and I'll queue up a couple of these videos. This is one video I think that illustrates the problem with the official wing dam story. I might kind of skip through it. Ohio River.
Mile 0 on the Tennessee River is on the Ohio River just below Smithland, between Cumberland Townhead and Cumberland Island. It is 30.6 miles from here to Barkley Dam. The dotted line plots the track created by the Katie Lee's Garmin chart plotter.
The mooring cells at Ohio River mile 923.0 and the Cumberland Island light indicate mile 0 on the Cumberland River. But because the Ohio is split by Cumberland Island, you must go 2 more miles before you leave the Ohio. The wing dams that appear in this aerial photo are exceedingly dangerous and may be covered with water. When we get to Green Turtle Bay, I'll show you a photo of a nearly new Jefferson yacht that hit a wing dam when it went too far east of the buoys.
Now pay attention. In here he's pointing out where the wing dams are, and just see how large they are. You've got an island that's clearly sitting very proud of the river. So the idea that that island was once not there only 100 years ago or whatever, when they say the Army Corps of Engineers put in all these wing dams, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And when you see how far out into the river these things are, oftentimes, and that's another issue to address. And here's one, and these are huge. If you consider how far up we are looking at this, and the Ohio River is a very, very big, broad river.
The evil wing dams are marked with red buoys. They are often underwater and not exposed as they were on this day in October 2001. At times, the buoys may be underwater during floods or missing completely when hit by tows. The Coast Guard uses Cumberland Island as a storage place for buoys. At the north end of Cumberland Island, you'll get a fine view of the Smithland Lock and Dam on the Ohio. Whatever you do, don't attempt to go upstream past Cumberland Island and come in from upstream, as that channel is blocked by a rock dike.
At starboard is Smithland, Kentucky, population 400. It's the seat of Livingston County and reported to be the oldest incorporated town on the Ohio River.
So anyways, yeah, it's super dangerous. Let me get another. There's a couple of these wing dam videos. Yeah, let me just show you one before I get to this other guy who is he made a video about navigating on the Mississippi, and I think it's good illustrating the real problem as well. Now, when you look at these maps, one of these guys, and maybe it's the guy coming up, he showed a navigation map, and it's probably one of the guys coming up, and that navigation map is going to show you really clearly what the problem is with the official story. But here's a quick 15-second video of one of these wing dams, and I want to bring up to you how it's functioning. So this is a wing dam jutting out very far into this river. And unfortunately he doesn't give us which river this is, but obviously it's a very large wing dam, and it looks like the wing of it is here. It looks strange to me, and maybe it's the angle that he's at, because most of them that I've seen seem to be going at a different angle than this, but again, sometimes depending on where he's at on the shore, which way the river is going, bending. But check it out. So that's a wing dam. And if you'll notice, if for instance you watched my Manistee Lowheads video, I took some video of the lowheads in front of the hydroelectrics, so-called, in Manistee, 2 of them. And you can see what's happening here in front of this wing dam is the same phenomenon that happens in front of the lowhead dams. You have a hydraulic drop now happening, and so you have a boil in front of it. And the real danger is there's different situations that can occur depending on the height of the structure that's causing this to happen. If the water is very, very high, then you don't have a really dangerous boil. But based on the height of these wing dams, even if this water were higher in greater flood conditions, then you would have the danger of running your boat onto them, and that could be a seriously dangerous situation for you. Now, if it's in lower water situations, so where the tailwater is lower than the headwater, then you're going to get a very dangerous a boil here. And you see all that white water there is so full of air that one of the great dangers of being caught in this boil is you can't achieve good buoyancy, because the water's just too full of air right here at that hydraulic drop point. So if it's low enough, if the tailwaters were super low, it wouldn't be that dangerous, because part of what makes the boil so dangerous is the height of the tailwater. But in a situation like this, where it's a wing dam, that tailwater is never going to get low enough for it to not be dangerous. The best you could hope for is that a huge flood would be happening, and that your boat would not have a shallow draft and could just go over any of the more hidden dams. But I really want to get to this one guy's video. He has some pretty good little parts in here about the unfortunately his video is not very loud, so I might have to kill my mic here for some of this.
Let's go find this one. Let's go back just a tad, and this marker, right? Just go back up here, cameraman. Come on, go back, go back. You guys hang on. Well, guys, here we have a buoy marker size of the family, but you got to keep it between those two channel markers, or you can run into some things we're going to cover in the next video of wing dams. You like that? Well, guys, this is a wing dam. If you look up here where the water is calm, that's fairly deep water, right where.
Yeah, so it's really clear. You can see that now because the water levels are so close. But again, what I guess I'm trying to emphasize here is no matter what the height of the river is, you know, whether it's flooding, whether the water level is low or high, you're going to have a certain consistency from the one side to the other with just a little bit more height at the one side than the other because it's not completely cut off like a low head dam. Still very dangerous, though.
It starts to ripple and stuff. That is a wing dam. Right underneath there is a pleasure boater's nightmare. If you hit this thing at Mach 2 in a pleasure boat, and it's going to wipe out that lower unit and ruin your afternoon. So guys, it's important. If you're going to be out here on the Mississippi, you need to learn how to read the river, and that is a great picture right there. Well, guys, let's take a look under the water. As you see here, you can also see a lot of fish here. That's why I fish in these spots. But guys, you watch the depth, and it's going to go from 11 feet to damn shallow pretty quickly. And guys, again, if you hit this thing at Mach 2, here it comes, guys. There is a walk wall right there.
Did you hear that? He's going over one of these things. Obviously, he's got a shallow enough draft to his boat. And where he started was 11 feet. And by the time he got there, it jutted up so sharply, he said, there's a rock wall. Now, what's funny about that, I'll back it up a little bit so we can see a good picture of his sonar. This goes up so sharply. It goes up so sharply that I'm skeptical that we're looking at something that was built simply out of rocks because of how sharply it goes up. If you're building something out of mostly loose stone, even large loose stone, you're going to have a certain angle of repose that it has to have to maintain its structural integrity. Okay? So if he's looking at this thing and then all of a sudden, I'm trying to get it right at the spot where he shows, right here. So it was 11 feet down here. Then all of a sudden, all you got is just maybe a little bit of a hump, a little bit of a pitch up, and then boom! I don't know how many feet that actually is, but look at that. That is vertical. That's vertical. And if I see something vertical like that, and it's maintaining its structural integrity under the water like that, under the water where it's constantly being battered with currents, I'm assuming that we're looking at something that's either large pieces of cut stone or more likely, in my opinion, formed concrete. And if that's the case, and if you consider just the sheer number of these wing dams in just the Missouri and Mississippi that we've looked at, and we're supposed to believe that the Army Corps of Engineers did those in a pretty brief amount of time on these rivers, these gigantic rivers.
Let's go back to the chart. You can see right where my finger is pointing is the exact place we just filmed at. And as you can see, it's in kind of a unique shape. And when you watched it, you could see that unique shape. And when
kind of a unique shape. Well, what it is it's actually in a shape that goes entirely against not only shape, but size. How far out onto the river it goes. And it's not just this one wing dam. This over here, look how far out it goes before this island. there's such a narrow amount of space that's navigable, that's not going over these wing dams. Look at the one further up from his finger. It's so far out over this you can barely get around, as if someone was trying to pigeonhole certain size craft into certain size spaces. Now, I'm not saying that for good or evil, malicious, military, economic. I don't know. I'm just expressing to you how it seems to look, and that I don't think that this follows the official narrative for why these things were constructed. And I'm not seeing any kind of a scale on this, so I don't know how big these are, but you see the ones here up top. They're extending the greater amount of the way out so that you could only navigate small vessels that would about fit in this little channel right here. Over here, you have these structures that are, at least on the map, are solid. And when you consider the shape of the land all around them, they really don't fit the wing dam narrative as far as what they're used for. And I guess going back here, I can go back to the Missouri just to look at it one more time. A few of these wing dams on the Missouri River around St. Louis. Hopefully I haven't started too far away, but I think it's a good idea to re-examine them in light of what they're supposed to officially be for. I didn't start far enough away, because most of them, they tend to start a little further. No, I did. Maybe I'm not zooming in far enough so that we can see them pretty good. And here's some of them. Okay. So if what you're doing is you're trying to reduce sediment deposit, we can see them below the water here. That's a pretty odd shape right here. And if you're trying to stop erosion and keep the channel deep, is what they're saying. Is that true? Is that not true? Maybe it is. Maybe that's actually the reason that the people who put these in did it for in the first place. Most people who actually comment on wing dams are fishermen because they find them great places to fish at. Now, the thing that I'm not too clear on is based on their story, like why all these wing dams were put in. The one thing that I'm not entirely clear on is, we'll go down and look at these, is this odd, for one thing, the odd inconsistency to it, and another thing is their size. Now, I did show you in the last video that they will come out hundreds of feet into the river. What I'm not sure about is why they could not function in a way that wasn't, let's just say we're believing the official story, why they couldn't function in a way that they didn't impose themselves as greatly along the river. And I'm not saying that these things aren't meant to control the river. Again, I know I'm being repetitive. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I don't know that I believe the Army Corps of Engineers did this. And, of course, everything that's ever been done in this country of any significance was all done in the late 1800s or the early 1900s. So they did a hell of a lot, according to their story, in a small time. You notice how this looks like that sawtooth pattern that we saw much further up the river. And then here we've got that. Now, I'll tell you what, it certainly does, if that's what they're trying to do, reducing the sediment, is that what we're looking at? Because we've got them right here. Is that what we're looking at? Are we looking at built up sediment in these areas? And this would be your channel. If that were the case, is this going to cause flooding problems? Once the sediment is built up, you have a smaller channel, it's flowing really hard, you get water levels rising. It's just going to then, I would think, if it doesn't have its regular channel or path to disperse into, that it's just going to rise up over all of this accumulated sediment and just start flooding these areas. Is that something that they want to happen or not? Again, these are extending out into the river 600 feet. Now, if you follow this path, mostly north and west of St. Louis, you will see that they do appear to be creating a channel that's, I don't know, 666 feet wide. It's pretty close, though. That's weird. Anyways, it does seem to possibly be creating a very relatively consistent width to the channel. It certainly doesn't explain everything, though. It doesn't explain why you have this one right here that goes out at least that far. That's almost about 800 feet. And it's right next to this side channel. And then when we go into this side channel, it looks like one has been built to block this side channel. Basically like a 440-foot essentially dike right there. Same with over here. These might have been some that I pointed out before. In my mind, it doesn't really explain a lot of things. And I think that you would have to really stop and think a lot about this. What purpose does this serve? If so the water is flowing in this direction, they want to keep it then out of this channel. They want to keep this area from flooding, from filling in. This is Cora Island, and look at the one end of this channel that runs next to Cora Island. Look at this. We have some sort of structure, whether we're just talking about a rock dike, 280 feet wide, that is creating a serious stopper for anyone traveling by boat. I don't know exactly, why these things are as they are. But they are there, and I don't think the official story really answers some of the problems. Now, one thing I did want to show you, I posted, as I told you in the last video, I posted a picture that I got here on Google Earth of the Lowheads running up the Grand River in Grand Rapids, right near, this is east of where I live, and you can see them on the Grand pretty easily. Look, I'm not even close. So this right here, this road is 196. That better be 196 or else I'm going to feel foolish. Let me go ahead and put the road markings back on. Yeah, that is 196. There it is. Okay. I'm going to zoom way in on this guy here. And this one's interesting because we have what appears to be some sort of a buttress. I'm only calling it a buttress right now because I'm not sure what other purpose it once might have served. Holy moly. We got a launch right there? Wait a second. So from here to here, that's a quarter-mile stretch the level of the water changes dramatically from this very large lowhead to this shorter lowhead. And again, you know, a lot of fishermen fish. Is that just a log? Yeah, apparently that's a log. There seems to be a break in this one right in this area here. Now, when I put up this post on Facebook, what I had said was the only way I could see all of these, look how close those two are. Look how close those two are. 301 feet apart, those two. The next one, 537 feet. 537 feet. And we've got far more unevenness over here on this left-hand side. And I believe we have one more in that area. Then we've got some shallows over here. Yeah, this one looks a lot more even right there. So anyways, this is only like a half-mile stretch from the one that's furthest south, which would be about here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? About a half mile from the one to the other. And when you consider the danger of these things, the official story for why they were ever put in, all of them being serious engineering projects, because you would have to, at least on a river that's the size of the Grand River, you know, the Grand River here in Grand Rapids is 500 feet wide. You'd have to build at least 2 cofferdams and pour the one side, and then build another cofferdam, pour the other side at least. That's a lot. That's a serious project. And you'd have to control that water flow in the meantime while you're doing that. So it's a lot to put into it, to put into 5 low-head dams sequentially in a half mile. And if you want to go with the official story like, well, they're just great for sportsmen and stuff, I would say I don't think they're great for sportsmen. I'm going to show you why. I found this video on the largest of the 5, which is the furthest upstream, is the largest one, largest as far as vertical. Okay, and here's a video of something that happened to some guys out there, I guess, who really weren't familiar with how powerful these things are, or something. I don't know, but this is it. Take a look. Okay, real quick, I had to insert this. This video I took was of the highest, the one furthest north, just north of 196 in Grand Rapids on the Grand River. This is the lowhead that's 10-12 feet from level to level in the water. This was a few guys, looks like they were out to fish, that got pulled in, and the boat got flipped over, capsized, because that's what they do. Luckily, the guys were able to float out. One of them actually swam out right in front of, he swam out right in front of this, well, it's hard for me to say if this is actually just a buttress, because I don't know what was existing there or in what way, if this was part of a bridge that ran over this or what. Anyways, I think what happened was there was a small enough amount of combined current from the hydraulic drop and the return of the tailwater that it looked like he was floating free, but it did say in the story that all 3 men had to be rescued, because there's only, like, I think not even a quarter mile between this and the next lowhead that's actually the next lowhead in the tail of this one. It's pretty small. There is a boat launch on one side, which I just personally find insane, because if you get too close to the one and you go over, that's bad. And if you get too close to this one, you get caught in the boil, just like these guys did. But I can't show it because This was on what it appears to be a Michigan news station / channel that has it copywritten, and I was going to replace it with another capsizing from a low head, but that's impossible because apparently every single boat capsizing video that exists, one news station or another across the country has bought it up and copywritten it. So that's what happened. These guys got pulled in, and that low head just turned their boat right over, and they probably would have died if somebody hadn't gotten to them, because that's what these things do. They kill people and they tip boats. All right, that was it. We're not extremely deep. I don't know how deep the waters are there, or how deep each one of those sequential dams, low head dams, make the waters up to that very high one. But one thing I noticed is the first guy who bailed out looked like he was able to swim away from that. Now, whether it was because he was near that area where that buttress was, which would have cut the hydraulic drop, at least in that area, it's possible. But if you had, like, this drop it's got to be 10 foot. It seems like it's got to be about 10 foot difference in the water levels that it's creating. So two things. This is a perfect drop to create a very dangerous boil in, if the tailwater is deep enough. And it needs to be deep enough and causing enough pressure backwards to create that boil. I had one other here. Now, one thing about this is I'm not sure that this was ever designed to be a low head in, I guess, the sense of what a pure low head typically looks like, if we know. Because a lot of our definitions of what low head dams are they're coming from official sources. So you'll notice when you watch this, it doesn't look necessarily like most low heads. It's sort of buttressed in the middle in a very different way than that other one is. So yeah, check this out. I can't believe this kayaker even tried this, but that's one of the problems with low heads is it's so difficult to gauge the difference in water levels approaching one. If you're approaching it upstream, it's very deceptive until you're right there, and there you go, and you're going down. So
is it good? Get him! Hurry up here and get up there.
one thing, and this is a great example of how this works, this kayaker caught in this boil, first off, you'll notice that he's really having a hard time even getting free of it, because that's the whole purpose of the boil. Again, this doesn't look like it's a pure low-head dam. Most low-head dams have that OG shape, which is almost pyramidal, with anywhere from a 6 to 20 foot crest, flat crest across it, and then it's that front usually that gives it such a strong drop to it and creates that boil depending on the height of the tailwater. But in this case, he caught one that was very strong. Now, there might have been actually a large hole down here too. And what that, if you think about it, I suppose the engineering of water, which I'm not a great mind concerning, but just think about it for a second. if this had over a long period of time, the bottom was quite soft. This can happen. This is a normal thing, and this can be what would make, say, a structure like that, which wasn't originally intended to be used like a low head, which I don't know if it was or wasn't, but it looks square as opposed to that sort of OG shape. What's going to happen is that drop, which that's a serious drop right there, that hydraulic drop, it's going to be putting so much pressure on whatever the normal, which it doesn't look like this bed was all that deep to begin with, but right here and right over there, I'll bet you it has removed so much of the bottom that was there, and it's created these huge holes. And what's happening is, in these huge holes, you think about it, the water's not even moving that fast over here, so it very easily, it's just filling in these huge holes, and it's creating a boil that's probably far more dangerous than a lot of other low head dams. Like, for instance, that one I just showed you on the Grand River. This one, because it's probably got such a large dug out hole, especially, and on both sides too, it's not just the front. Like if this thing was continuous all the way across, it's making it right in this area, and so all the water is pushing back into that hole from every side around this guy. It's amazing. Look at his oar actually was able to float free, and it's really weird. So his oar was likely a composite, very light and buoyant. Very light and buoyant. The problem he's going to have, of course, in this boil is that all of this water that's in and on top of this boil, it's so saturated with air. It's so foamy. It's got so much oxygen in it. It's so foamy that you can't maintain a decent buoyancy on top of it. So you also, at the same time, you're sinking. You can't stay afloat as easily. So you're sinking below this foamy water, and the problem is it doesn't have enough oxygen in it for you to breathe. So again, these are just some of the most deadly places that exist on rivers, and you have to really question any of the wisdom that they try to tell us that the Army Corps of Engineers has. They do get this guy out. Yeah, they throw him a line and they tow him out. But again, it seems to me that this was different, and it was a probably put in for a different purpose. And we even have these shelves here, which would allow somebody to get right up on top of them. I have to believe that those holes were only made later on after the fact, but I don't know. This is in Kentucky. This is a dam in Kentucky. Elkhorn Creek on May 1st, 2021, Frankfort, Kentucky. Beautiful state, by the way. Okay, so I had a couple others that actually involved the way that these lock and dam systems, specifically just dams, whether they're lock and dam, hydro, are impounding water, and the way that they release them and how that affects people. And again, the wisdom of the Army Corps of Engineers and the benevolence or assumed benevolence of the Army Corps of Engineers, the U.S. government, state governments. Governments, are they working for or against the people? I'll get to that at another time. I'll tell you this, though. With all of these projects, pretty much all of them being attributed to the Army Corps of Engineers for their origin, their design, their construction, it's really something that one of the hardest U.S. agencies to get any kind of good information concerning projects, when they were done, what was involved, how many people worked on it, how they designed it, how they implemented it, is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. you try to find books concerning their history, like as in detailed history about this stuff. Not that easy. Not that easy. I'm sure they would say that all has to do with national security, of course. But, yeah, maybe their nation, they need to keep this from the nation of people that are living essentially as their slaves and serfs. They need to keep all that information from us, because what would happen if we started finding out they just lied, and this land has existed for many hundreds, thousands of years with our people existing in it, and that it was once rightfully our land, and at least a good chunk of it will be again. I don't know about all of it, but at least a chunk of it. Because they're not going to allow us to even have that. They can't allow any freedom, especially a freedom of an entire ethnicity of people, to take very large swaths of land. That absolutely can't be allowed. I mean, they're bad enough when like a few people get together and do that. So that was it. That was it for this one. So see you guys next time.